welcome to the show today. Today we're doing something a little different. We are actually attempting to stream live. There's a little technical difficulty, so hold on, bear with me 1 second. I just want to make sure this stream is working. There's always technical problems, right? That's one reason why we always check these things beforehand. Okay, we got it. Let's do this. Okay, folks, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here. We have a great show lined up for you today. We have a special guest all the way from Belgium, David Daoud. So before we get on to our guest today, I just wanted to make a little note. We have a special segment at the end of our interview. So if you get a chance, stick around so that you can check out a new segment and let me know in the comments what you think of that new segment, okay? So without further ado, let's welcome David Dow to the show. Welcome, David.
Hey, how are you?
Fine. Thanks so
Good.
much for
Thanks,
coming on
Chris.
this. Thanks. I'm sorry, I should let you come in, huh? Thanks so much for coming on the show today. Um, Before we get started with the questions, I wanted to ask you when
Yeah.
learned about you through some friends, and I saw your name. It was spelled Daoud or something like that. I think, okay, how do you
Yeah.
pronounce that? Daoud. But you told me it's pronounced Dowd. There has to be
Yeah,
a
that's
story
right.
behind
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's an Arabic name, right? It means David in Arabic,
Ah,
but
okay.
back home we just say Dowd. But I can give you all the history on that if you want. A beer, a pub,
Oh,
sunny day, and
okay.
I'll tell you all about it.
Hey, I'm with you. We're in this. We may not be able to invite the audience, but I'll be there.
Oh yeah, I think they'll come. I think they'll come.
Well, again, thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah,
And
no worries.
you are a sailor, and I have some questions for you about that. But
Yeah.
first, I need to ask you: you're an Australian, but you're living in Belgium. So
Yeah.
the
Well,
sto-
it's long story short, I was traveling the world and I ended up working in Israel with an ONG or NGO, I should say, um, Watchtower Construction. So I was working there, and then a lovely lady came past. She was also an architect, and we got together. And so I ended up in Belgium with two kids and a house and all that sort of stuff. So that's
wow.
how come I'm in Belgium. But
Oh,
yeah, so previously I was touring around,
ah, well,
backpacking actually. Yeah.
if you have to land somewhere, Belgium's not a bad place to be. Now,
Well, yeah,
yeah, yeah, you got to be somewhere, right? Belgium is
yeah,
as good as places in. So your interests are in boating and sailing, right? And you've been in it a long while, from what I understand. Can I ask what were your influences in getting into boating?
Well, the sea is my passion, my love. But for most Australians, the sea is part of their life because most people live on the coast, and so when we were kids, we were surfing all the time, and also my uncles, one of them built a sailing boat, two of them actually, and another one had a speedboat, and another one had a cruiser. So we were always going fishing and what have you. I don't like fishing, funny enough, but I do like everything else about the sea. It's not
Uh-huh.
that I don't, I would like to eat fish, but I just don't like catching them very much.
Right.
There you go. So it's right from when I was about 8 years old, or that I can really remember, got started on that. There you go.
Wow.
Mm.
Cool story. So you mentioned that you've been all around. So you've sailed around the world, right? Or where exactly have you gone?
Okay, well, I didn't sail around the world, but I've sailed in different countries, in different islands, Tahiti, Cook Islands, New Zealand, of course, around Australia, and where I live as well. Also, Caribbean, the Bahamas, and in Europe, many countries in Europe, Turkey, Greece. Also UK and Ireland. So I've sailed in many places in many different seas, and so the beginning of it was the first time I actually sailed my boat. I had a little boat, a little sailing boat. I don't know if you know the Hobby Cat. It's a small catamaran with a little net on it, and it's for one or two
Oh
people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen those.
Yeah, yeah. So that was my first little boat that I bought for myself when I was about 18, and I was playing around on that. Yeah.
Wow.
So I've been around sailing, but it was only in spots, huh? So I didn't go across from country to country or anything
Gotcha.
like that.
Gotcha. No, David, you don't own a sailboat. So how do you get access to one?
Well, it's relatively easy. So what you do is you charter a boat. Now anybody can charter a boat, even yourself. Even if you don't have a license, you can charter a boat, but you can't drive it.
I got you.
For safety reasons, for many reasons. It's like having a car. You can own a car, but you can't drive your car. And so
Okay.
we go around on that. Yeah, there you go.
Wow. Well, while you're talking, let's take us a look at some of your pictures that you were so nice to supply us with.
Yeah, okay. Well, the type of boats that I'm licensed to sail is like this catamaran here. That's a new one, of course, huh?
Okay.
But and if we go to the next slide, this is a typical what we call a classical boat, right? It's single
Gotcha.
hull. And the thing is, with a single hull, it's very deceptive as against a catamaran. Catamaran, you see everything above the water, and so you see what you get. Here, everything is under the water. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see a plan of one. So I'm going to do a little bit
Oh,
of a
okay.
spiel on boats with the
Okay,
next
go
few
for it.
slides.
Go
Yeah,
for it.
okay. So here we see that there are cabins. There are like double bunk cabins where you're sleeping on top of each other. There are cabins where you have the bed, a double bed type thing. And here you have three shower toilets. We call them heads on a boat. On
Huh?
top of that, we have a dining area. So this boat has five cabins, and it has so you can sleep 10 people.
Oh,
Plus, you can
wow.
at a pinch you could sleep another one in the salon there. And so we eat inside or outside, and that's a typical internal view. And you can see it's quite large, it's quite airy. It's like
It
about
is.
5 meters across. My house where I live, it's about 6 meters across, right? Which is
Wow.
about 7 yards nearly. So here it's quite large. It's like a small apartment. If you go to
Oh,
the next page, next picture, I should say, you see me cooking there, and that's typical arrangement. You can have two people cooking quite easily
wow.
for everybody. That's
So,
what we normally do, huh?
wow.
Yeah.
So, are you a chef? That food looks kind of good there.
Well, I'm not a chef, but I can beat up a good English breakfast for you.
Okay.
Um, but on top of that, everybody cooks on the boat, huh? So everyone decides on a meal. It's a little bit like I call it glamping, right? It's camping while you're boating, right? This is some friends of mine last year, and we did a couple of barbecues with fish and what have you. And so that's usually the deal as well, huh? So we get to the island, they
Wow.
cook on the island, bring it to the boat, we eat on the boat. And as you can see here, we always have a new view because you're always moving around. So you have a new
Wow.
swimming pool, is what I say.
Wow. Breakfast with the view. You know, you cannot beat that at all.
No,
Very
that's
nice.
what most people really enjoy.
Right.
So, and that's what, yeah, gets me going. If you look at the next picture, you actually see a breakfast that somebody decided to do, melons
Wow.
and bacon and what have you. So people enjoy presenting their food really nicely and also deliciously, huh? So that's that's what everybody's contribution is on the boat.
Oh,
But
very
also at the
nice.
same time, yeah. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, no, I was just saying very nice.
Oh,
Very nice.
okay, yeah. So also, if you look at this picture here, you note me sitting. I'm bending down at the back there, looking at the screen, the
Mm-hmm.
GPS and the plotter. But you see everybody else. I try to get everybody else involved, and I try not to touch the boat too much. I try to let people do it. The only time I really take control of the boat is when, I mean, hands-on control is when we're going into the marina and coming out.
Oh,
Apart from that, I try to get people used to touching all the different things, the lines, the buoys, the steering, etc., etc.
so it's not just a trip; it's an education.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how I started it is because I wanted to do it as a business with my students, right? And I've got that going as well.
Wow.
And when I talk about students, I'm not talking about kids. I'm talking about in company. I teach soft skills and English in
Mm-hmm.
institutions and companies, banks, etc. And so I'm dealing with adults, right? And people who are interested in this type of thing. So I go with them on the boat, and it's English and sailing at the same time. And so with my friends, of course, I do a cost on a cost basis with the boat.
Very nice. So
Yeah.
I'm getting the impression that you offer sailing tours. Do you have
Oh
any
yeah,
coming up on
yeah.
the horizon?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get some off the ground. I had planned quite a number, of course, as most people have. But as from what I see with the from the news, I expect that the summer we'll be able to travel within Europe, maybe not out of Europe, but within Europe. And so I'm trying to organize a few people. And so what I'm doing in April, we'll know a little bit more. But in April, I'm going to have meetings, and that's what I do anyway. I, excuse me. I usually do a couple of meetings before we go with the people, where they want to go, what they want to do, and then I build the sail tour around what they want or where they want to go.
Ah,
Yeah.
very nice. Now, what are your expectations of folks that are going to be taking one of your tours?
Well, there's not really a great deal of expectation, except that you need to let me know what you're doing, what you want to do. So, for example, there's some people. I had one time a group of people, my students, and they said, "We like walking. Can we integrate walking with sailing?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." So, what I did was I dropped them off on one side of the island, and they went up the mountain and down the other side, and I took the boat around with those who wanted to sail, and we met them on the other side. Of course, we were there before them, so we started the barbecue and the meal, and everything was ready. When they arrived, of course, they were totally exhausted, but so they were very happy to have the cocktails and things. I usually try to organize the cocktails, or if somebody has a good suggestion, we accept them making the cocktails.
Wow.
But that's basically it. So actually, talking about cocktails and alcohol drinking, um, during the day, I don't like people drinking alcohol. But once the boat is anchored and we're um, done for the day, then the wine bottles or whatever
Right.
you're drinking, the cocktails
Right.
open up.
I'm sure it helps prevent people from accidentally slipping off the side of the boat.
Well, that's the other thing. And in the event that there is an emergency, then everybody's able to react correctly without
Makes
having
sense.
too many accidents. Yeah.
Makes sense. So, David, Daniel, we're looking here at a picture of a bathroom, what you call a head.
Yeah.
Is there only one on a boat, or
No, 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 no. The boat that we saw, where there's 10 people on that boat, there are three heads, three shower toilets like the one
okay.
you see here. Plus, there's a shower on the back, what we call, the picture where everyone was at the back of the boat there,
Mm-hmm.
and I was bending over there. On that, that's called the cockpit, and there's also a shower there. When you come out of the water, you can wash yourself down.
Oh,
So there's a lot of possibilities, but in reality, you're always in the water. We swim about 2 or 3 times per day when we're moving around. So we stop for lunch, we have breakfast, we stop for dinner, and so you're moving around all the. I mean, you're in the water all the time. Yeah.
wow.
That last picture that you're showing now, um, that's Kvar in Croatia. And so what we do all the time is we come to there. If there is a place there, we try to stop there, more for the night. But if we can't more for the night there, then there's another marina around the side, or we anchor on one of the little islands that are around there.
Wow. Very, very
There you
nice.
go.
I wanted
Can
to
I? Can I?
mention,
Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry,
Go
Daniel.
ahead.
I wanted to
Go ahead.
mention to all those listening and watching the show today that if you have any questions, feel free to type your questions for Daniel in the chat on YouTube, and we'll get them up on the screen, and we'll try to get them answered for you guys. Okay? So, David, I mean, I keep calling you David because you know what? You threw me off when you said your last name means David. so,
Well, don't
so,
worry. Don't worry about it.
so
Tons of people call me. Tons of
yeah,
people call me David. That's not a problem. Yeah.
it's as bad as my mom calling me Stevie all the time.
Okay.
But
Okay.
anyway, I was checking out one of the videos from your trips, right? And I
Yeah.
think you were in Croatia. So this is Croatia, you said too, right?
That's right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I really, really like this video. So I think I want to share it with the
Okay.
viewers today. So let's take a look at this really cool video David provided for us.
21 the water. It was a couple of days ago in Istria. It was 21.
Yeah.
It's really warm.
Yeah.
It's warm.
And I think that's the minimum it drops or something like that,
Ah,
if I'm not mistaken. At this time of the year, it's between 22 and 24.
Wow, great video. Thank you so much, David, for sharing that with us. Really
No
appreciate it.
problems. Yeah. Thank you.
So I
Yeah.
just have a couple more
Yeah.
questions for you. Now,
Go. Yeah.
if someone wants to go with you on this trip that you have coming up, how can they do that? How can they arrange to go on the trip? And also, do you offer private trips?
Yeah, so if anybody wants to organize a trip or wants to inquire without any commitment, right? It's my pleasure to do it because I want to be on a boat as long as often as I can. So I'm always trying to get some sacrificial lambs on the boat. Um, so I'm always asking people around, always asking people who are around to if they're interested in that, and and so of course it's based on a cost only, right? So I'm not making any money on that. But if somebody wants to have a private trip, so basically, if you get a small boat or a big boat, the cost per person stays the same, right? We're not talking about super boats, huh? We're talking about what most people like you and me um, charter, and so the cost per boat remains more or less the same, and that's the how it works. And so if they want the smallest boat's about 6 people, and the largest one that I can do is about 12 people.
Wow.
And so that being the case, if you want to go on your own, normally you organise your family or some friends, and you say, can you just be our skipper? And then I'm happy to do that as well. And the other one is I organise 2 or 3 people, and then I just keep collecting people to that group until the boat's finished. One time I started with 6 people, and then kept growing, and everybody wanted to be together because they were friends of friends of friends, and so I changed the boat 3 times. But the company's okay with that as long as I increase the size of the boat, because for them it's more money.
Exactly.
If it's the other way around, they're not too happy with
They
that.
have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, we have a question from someone. It's not actually in the YouTube chat, but it was sent to me. Someone that's calling in. They want to
All
know
right.
if you were ever in any danger at any time on any of these trips.
I never felt life-threatening danger, but there are things that you need to respond to. So sometimes you have a couple of times you're in a bay and there's a little bit of waves, and the waves come in at a particular angle. And some of these chartered boats, they might have an anchor that's not fantastic and it doesn't hold well in that particular area. And so it may let go. What happens mostly for me, it's the problem is the damage to the boat rather than I feel that I'm going to die, we're going to
Right.
all drown or the boat's going to sink. So that doesn't, that sort of danger doesn't happen. If you go right out in the ocean, again, today the technology and the extra equipment that you carry for survival, etc., etc., there is no real danger anymore. We're not talking about Titanic,
Right.
the way boats are constructed. It's very, very safe. I've never felt. I've been in storms in the middle of the ocean, not a problem. Especially with a yacht, actually a small yacht like the ones that you saw, not the catamaran, the classical yachts,
Hmm.
they are safer than an ocean liner
Really?
in a storm. Yeah.
How is
The
that?
thing is
You
with
have to answer that question.
well, the thing is, yeah, well, that's technical. But with an ocean liner, they have technology to avoid storms. So they have weather satellites on board, etc., etc., and they have information coming to them from satellites, and so they avoid storms. With a small yacht, you can't avoid storm, but we go right through them, and yeah, we survive through them.
Okay.
So
I'm
yeah,
going to
there you
believe
go.
you, but I have seen movies.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Don't believe what you see.
I
Don't
actually
believe what you
saw
see.
a movie about a lady that I think she set sail from Australia, and she was headed to United States or something like that, and she ended up being adrift. It was on Netflix. It was a Netflix show, but it
Oh,
was,
okay. No, I haven't
yeah,
seen it then.
yeah.
No. Okay.
Well,
Yeah, you got to be careful with movies. I mean,
yeah,
you got to take it with a pinch of salt. But
yeah.
the reality is, today, any rate, in the places where we go in Europe, which is Greece, Croatia, Italy, etc., we're always surrounded by islands, so we're always in little lagoons, little protected areas. We're never out in the middle of the ocean with nobody around us. And also you don't confuse racing single-handed around the world with cruising with a family where you take all the precautions and
Got
you
you.
go at speeds that are safe. Everything's done with multiple redundancies to counteract any dangers that you may have, that you may come across.
Very cool. Well, Daniel, thank you so much. This was really informative. And just so we let the viewers know that if you want more information about how to get in touch with Daniel to either get on the upcoming trip that he's arranging, cruise that he's arranging, or a future cruise, I'll put all the information down in the description, and you can feel free to contact him. And I also put a link to some of his videos so that you can actually see some of more videos of some of his trips to kind of get you in the mood to travel. Stick around, folks, because I have a really nice new segment I want to show you. Daniel, if you want to stick around too, and check this out, okay?
Pleasure.
Welcome, folks, to the very first episode of a new segment that I'm going to call The More You Know. And the reason why I'm starting this segment is because at times I become curious about the origins of things or the single stories I have about people and places that I kind of like to challenge sometimes. So in this new segment, we're going to examine a few of those things. We're going to talk about people, places, things, words that we might think about, well, where did that word come from? And we're going to examine some of the origins. So I hope you find this fun and interesting. So let's get started with popcorn. Now, while accounts vary about exactly when popcorn was first eaten in the world, some people say 10,000 years ago. You'll find articles out there saying 7,000 years ago, of a range of times. But as far as we do know, excavations in Peru and Mexico show that at least 1,700 years ago, popcorn was eaten by the Incas and the Aztecs here in the Americas. In fact, the Aztec language even has a word for the sound of many popcorn kernels popping at once. They called it totopoca. Now, one of the things that archaeologists have learned is that in those societies, popcorn just wasn't used for food. There's actually evidence that popcorn was used for ritualistic reasons. It's thought that Aztec women performed a popcorn dance during ceremonies wearing a popcorn necklace, garlands, and other types of things like ceremonial headdresses. In Mexico, archaeologists also unearthed a 1700-year-old funeral painting, and it depicted a goddess wearing a headdress made of popcorn. Interesting. Now, in time, early American settlers utilized popcorn after learning about it from those native indigenous people. However, rather than eating it as a nighttime snack, they often consumed popcorn as part of breakfast, where they would add milk or cream and into it to make it type of a cereal. By the 18th and 19th centuries, English speakers began referring to popcorn as popped corn, where the term eventually was shortened to the term we use today, popcorn. Now, in time, this popcorn became associated with many things. These associations include, like we talked about before, religious ceremonies, consumption at breakfast food. They used it in soup, and in some places, they even made it into a type of beer. Now, popcorn became even more popular after the invention of the mobile popping cart in 1885. The popping cart was created by a man by the name of Charles Critters. I hope I'm saying that correctly. In the 1880s. And this basic design of the early popcorn machine that he developed, you can still see examples of that type of machine today in home theaters, public outings, and even special events. Now, this machine that he created enabled him to establish a company, and then it started to grow. And the way that his machine worked is that it used steam to do all the roasting. And it was suitable for roasting peanuts as well as making popcorn. Now, the key innovation, or the key part to his machine, was that it automated the process of popping the kernels and seasoning the popcorn, making the process more uniform, and thus ensuring that all the kernels came out the same. Because before that, it was quite difficult because the heating was uneven. Now, this facilitated the process of making popcorn a more automated effort as opposed to a more manual effort. Now, the presence of creators machines grew in time and they became found in festivals and fairs, and people started associating popcorn with these types of events, which makes sense, right? Because that's usually only the places where they were found. And ironically, today, people still associate popcorn with these types of events. Now, around the turn of the century, with the advent of the talkies, or what we know commonly today of as movies, popcorn grew in popularity in the United States. You see, at that time, this was during the Great Depression, and theater owners were looking for a cheap way to keep people coming back into the theaters. Now, popcorn kernels were cheap, so popcorn was an inexpensive way of keeping patrons who were not well off keep coming back to the theaters to enjoy popcorn. And at the time, popcorn prices were relatively cheap. They ran from about 5 to 10 cents a bag. Now, vendors, they started getting an idea of, we're making this money here. So then they decided they were going to sell popcorn to people outside of the theater. And this allowed for them to get a double profit, right? They not only got the people in the theater, but they got the passersby that stopped by to get a snack. So then the snack was everywhere. Well, in time, the vendors, for a small fee, they could sell popcorn directly in the lobby of the theater. Now, it's gotten to the point where it's so popular, popcorn in theaters, that it's hard to imagine going to any movie theater and not seeing a jumbo bucket of popcorn, right? Or at least getting a whiff of it. Now, one thing that's different is that the price of popcorn is not as cheap relatively as it was back then. In fact, in some theaters, the average price of popcorn ranges from $6 to $9 in the U.S., so it's not as quite as cheap as it used to be. Now, as far as the consumption of popcorn, do you know that the average American eats 68 quarts of popcorn each year? That's about 17.3 billion quarts of popcorn annually. That's a lot of corn. Now, even in the UK, where crisps have been traditionally more popular, the sales of popcorn have just skyrocketed. In fact, according to a research firm called Mintel, in 2016, they found that popcorn sales had grown 169% over the past 5 years. Now, what we know of today is about popcorn was not, or I should say, is not actually made from the same type of corn that we see around us. Like when you go to the store and you see an ear of corn. Popcorn is not made from that type of corn. It's made from a special type of maize called Zay Maize Everta. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you can look it up. And of all the varieties of maize, that's the only one that will actually pop, believe it or not. Now, it might seem kind of limited that there's only one type of popcorn that pops, but there's actually several different strains of this one type of maize. Make sense? And so what they can do is from these different types of, or these different strains of this one type of maize, they can get a variety of popcorn flavor, texture, and even how the popcorn actually pops. Now, speaking of variety, there's actually a wide variety of popcorn flavors around the world. Now, in the United States and in Canada, butter and salt are the most common forms or the common flavors of popcorn, but you'd be surprised at the types of the flavors you find in other places. For example, in India, you're likely to run into miso soup flavored popcorn, za'atar flavored popcorn, which is a seasoning mixture that includes thyme, sesame, and sumac. You'll find Thai red coconut popcorn. In Germany, at the other side of the spectrum, you'll find popcorn coated in sugar. In Nigeria, they seem to enjoy fruit chutney flavored popcorn. In Brazil, the popcorn is called pipoca, and it's consumed with caramel and nuts. Sounds kind of good. You'll even find varieties where they'll put chocolate on top of it. Now, on the other side of the coin, in Japan, they like their popcorn a little different. See, there's a lot of boba that's consumed in Japan and other Asian countries. So they've actually made a popcorn, and it's the favorite flavor of popcorn, a boba tea popcorn. And that has seemed to have caught on a lot over there. So very interesting facts about popcorn. You can see how it has grown, just a little bit about the origins of popcorn. So the next time you're enjoying your favorite popcorn snack, just take a minute to think about the long history that popcorn has enjoyed across many cultures around the world. Think about all the people that were involved in getting this simple and delicious snack to the point that it is today. And if nothing else, this should help us to appreciate that in some ways we're all connected. We're connected across time and geographies. And a lot of the things that we see today were a culmination of a lot of individual contributions by diverse people all around the world. And it shows that we have one thing in common, is that we all love to learn from each other, to share with each other, and to grow. And now, hopefully, you know one more thing. Well, folks, that's a wrap on another show. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more shows like this, no problem. Just subscribe to my channel. It's super easy. Click on the subscribe button, then click notifications, and every time I upload a new show, you'll be the very first one to know. Also, if you'd like to be on the show, or maybe you know someone wants to be on the show, no problem. I'll leave my information down in the description. Just give me a call and let me know. Until then, eat well, travel a lot, and be as creative as humanly possible. Ciao.